have been watching with bated breath, along with basically everyone in Washington. The White House is watching this, Congress is watching this, everyone is watching what you see in the corner of the screen, which is when the judge resumes this sentencing proceeding for Paul Manafort, the only thing left is to actually hand down his jail sentence. Paul Manafort just spoke, as I was discussing with our panel, saying he felt humiliated and shamed, that would be an understatement, that he is repentant, he said, that he had time to think about it in a reference to solitary confinement, but he didn't say a lot else. And now we're waiting to see when that sentence comes. As mentioned, we have our full panel and our court reporter standing by, and we'll bring that to you. There is other developing news tonight, which is, get this, Michael Cohen, Trump's former lawyer, is formally suing the Trump organization, basically, for an unpaid bill of about $2 million dating from last year. Now, we've reported before about how Trump's unpaid bills cast him as a kind of a classic scrub, a guy who thinks he's fly but is actually a busta and known to be broke. Yes, I am quoting the singer's TLC, but this is the point tonight. We could just as easily be quoting the brand new lawsuit from Trump's own former lawyer, Michael Cohen. Let me bring in Jason Johnson and Aisha Moody-Mills. Aisha, you can't make it up. What do you think?
I mean, he is a scrub, Ari. That's hilarious. Yeah, I mean, look, it's clear that Michael Cohen, and this was clear when he was testifying in front of Congress, that he is trying to cash all the checks that he can before he goes away for his family's financial security. And he is leaving open his ability to make money in other ways. And so, yeah, he should get his money that's due. And this is absolutely indicative of the way that everyone has known and talked about Donald Trump doing business, where he sifts people. He doesn't pay what he owes. So I hope that he gets his money before he goes and his family's able to benefit. Yeah,
and he's obviously borne more of the brunt of Donald Trump and what it puts at risk working for him, which is a point you both were making earlier in our programming about a different former Trump employee, Paul Manafort. But again, Jason, it's not like this should have been a surprise to Michael Cohen, which is not to say he, quote-unquote, deserved it. But look, I'm going to read here from the reporting. Trump had underpaid 4 law firms or lawyers who worked for him, and this was an issue in him struggling to get good counsel even while he was a sitting president when the probe first started.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Ari. This is more than TLC. This is more like Rihanna. Trump better have my money. Because Cohen is basically also making the argument that he increased the likelihood of his own legal problems because he continued to work for Trump. Now, he can never get away with arguing like, hey, you owe me money for illegal acts. But the amount of time that he spent working with Trump, the possibility that he may have sort of fudged the truth from time to time to protect this president and provide him with support, yes, he does definitely think that he should be paid what he owes. And it's particularly damning because the money all seemed to dry up after Cohen's office got raided, which suggests that the president stopped paying him once there was pretty much no opportunity for Cohen to not continue to work for him exclusively. So I don't know if this is a particularly strong case, but given that he's got the Mueller investigation, he has impending jail time, and he's still got investigations with the Southern District of New York, Michael Cohen's got to get all the money he can because that book deal is not going to pay for all this.
Yeah, and Jason, there's also the related debates here as the White House is attacked, and a lot of Republicans have savaged Michael Cohen's credibility. I've been reporting how you really just have to look at each claim and the evidence because he has been known to mislead and lie about certain things. He admitted it, but what does he have? The pardon thing, though, is a big deal because it always raised the question of whether there was misconduct in the White House or, worse for Cohen, whether he was being misleading about it. Here's what his lawyers are saying in the latest on the twists in this story, that prior to July 18, Cohen directed his attorney to explore possibilities of a pardon. But after July 2nd, 2018, meaning that's the line they're drawing, Cohen told Lanny Davis, who people may recall as his lawyer, to say publicly he would never accept a pardon from President Trump, even if offered. That continues to be the case. What do you view that as? Is that sort of a partial admission?
I think it's a partial admission, Ari, but it's also the behavior of a lawyer who has at many times continued to change his story. Remember the hearings last week where many people had it on record and in text messages that Cohen said he wanted a job in the White House. And then Cohen says, well, I didn't want a job in the White House. I wanted to be able to work with the White House and basically have open-door privileges. So I can't imagine that he was not exploring all of his options and at one point pursued some sort of pardon from Trump. But let's be honest. Anybody who actually believes or bases their legal defense on Donald Trump coming to their aid is foolish. And I bet you Paul Manafort's going to spend a lot of time in jail before Trump even remembers him again. And Michael Cohen knows that if he agreed and worked with the Mueller campaign, there's little or no chance that Trump will ever come and rescue him.
Yeah, I think that's a complex part, because what you're saying makes sense. I think any viewer would say, right, I mean, this goes very poorly for these folks. Right. And yet, Aisha, Donald Trump also went out of his way to do a huge solid for a former Bush aide, Scooter Libby, who was convicted of a crime in office while serving a president. And Donald Trump has famously attacked the Bush family, ran against Jeb, was angry they didn't vote for him. And that, for many people, was the ultimate public message of him saying, however terrible it is to go through this, however disloyal he may seem, in the end, he's certainly willing to take random pardons for former White House aides.
Yeah, I think the challenge, though, is that you can't really predict what Donald Trump is going to show up at any moment in time. Right? And so for Michael Cohen, I think he got the message that I can't bank my future, the rest of my life, on what this man might do 2 years, 3 years down the road if he's still in office. And so one thing I want to remind us, too, Ari, is that Michael Cohen is no sympathetic character. He is absolutely a bald-faced liar. Right now, it is convenient for him to demonstrate remorse, to show some receipts, to show up with his luggage and drop off some documents, because ultimately he's trying to save himself. And that's what happens when people flip, right? Doesn't mean they're good guys. It means they're trying to save themselves. And hopefully the public will be able to benefit through it, and we'll learn some things that kind of get us closer to the truth of what we need to know about whether the president is enriching himself. But, you know, Michael Cohen talks out of both sides of his mouth as well.
All the time.
Jason, if any of these stories were applied to past presidents, would they be skating as well as Donald Trump thus far?
No, and Ari, this is sort of the, 20-something years ago, they used to call Bill Clinton Slick Willie, or he was a Teflon. This is the Teflon Don. And the reason is because Donald Trump has a vice grip over about 38% of the public. He has a vice grip over about 88% of Republicans in general. And he has absolute control over the Republican Party. And so no matter how bad this looks, no matter how many damning things come forward, no matter how many strippers or adult film stars or people he's cheated or people he hasn't paid back or bogus businesses or foreign entities that he's cut, deals with, he politically remains probably one of the most powerful presidents we've ever seen in our life. Half of these scandals would have sunk Obama. They would have sunk Reagan. They would have sunk Clinton. Scandals like this did actually sink Richard Nixon. But Donald Trump remains incredibly powerful. Now, I don't see that changing anytime soon, no matter what comes forward.
Very, very interesting extra, sort of beyond just the law, an extra view of that on the politics. My thanks to both of you. As mentioned, you're still riding along. Thank you very much for our special coverage. I want to go all of our guests in our special coverage. My personal opinion, I may be biased, but I think this is a strong showing, you guys. I don't know if you could see yourselves. With the 5 minutes or so I have left, though, that only leaves a little bit of time to go around the horn. And so ending with my colleague Ken Dilanian and with his right to interject at any time if he gets breaking news, I want to start with Jason, then go to Aisha and Ron. In 30 seconds or less, so you don't steal from each other, what is your bottom line tonight, Jason?
My bottom line is I hope that Paul Manafort goes to jail for as long as possible, and I'm disgusted and disturbed that we have a legal system where a judge can say that a man who at one point was nicknamed the torturer's lobbyist, who not only steals from America but actually worked for dictators and human rights abusers around the world, could be called a man who lived a blameless life.
Aisha.
Yep. So now we're seeing the perpetrators of white-collar crimes now actually being presented as the thugs that they are. And so I'm hopeful that we now go forward and to not think about white-collar crimes as just like white guys who get away with things, but for the horrible criminals that they actually are.
Ron.
Yeah, I think we have to make sure that no young person who's coming up through politics today ever looks at Paul Manafort and says, that's the guy I want to be. That's the power broker who I want to be, or that's my career goal in life. Every young person coming up through politics should look at Paul Manafort and say, I better follow the rules. I better make sure that I don't betray my party, my country, my principles in pursuit of a check or in pursuit of their own greed. Paul Manafort must forever be an example of what not to do, and we cannot allow the corrosion of our system of justice with any other type of outcome.
Margaret?
Listening to Ron, it reminds me, if we were to ask Republicans in the United States in the Senate, they might make excuses for Paul Manafort because they make excuses for Donald Trump. And so listening to Ron, who is the chairman of the Republican Party, talk about a fellow Republican and call him to task and show that he's not blameless, even though they're in the same party. Congratulations, Ron. We need that.
David.
Thank you.
The use of the word blameless is an affront to decency. Jason hit it on the nail, but even in this very case before the judge about Paul Manafort's representation of a Ukrainian president who was corrupt and a thug, that Ukrainian president had his own troops fire on and kill unarmed protesters in Maidan Square in Kiev. There is nothing blameless here, and I just wonder if this judge doesn't really get it.
And Matt, this judge has just said from the bench, quote, "I was surprised Manafort did not express regret."
Yeah, that's right, as all of us were too. Look, I don't think we have enough time for me to say what I think about the judge's blameless comments, so I'll say this. I hope justice is served tonight, but no matter what happens with this sentence, Mueller very specifically kept a card in his pocket. He had a chance to recommend in D.C. whether the sentence that the judge there is going to hand down be served after this sentence or be served concurrent with it, and they decided to wait and said they would file that recommendation after this sentence. They saw this trial, they know this judge's leanings, and they wanted to wait. I think whatever happens tonight will determine what they recommend next week.
Ken Dilanian.
Ari, I've just been told that Paul Manafort has received 47 months in prison from this judge in Virginia. 47 months. A fairly light sentence as compared to the guidelines of up to 24 years.
Ken Dilanian reporting.
Passing that sentence.
Ken Dilanian reporting from the courthouse for the first time. The breaking news: 47 months for Paul Manafort. We're seeing a little bit of the action outside this Alexandria, Virginia courthouse of people running out. Ken Dilanian, walk us through what that means, given what you learned today.
Well, it's an extraordinarily light sentence in the context of what could have come to pass here. And Judge Ellis foreshadowed it just before passing sentence by once again saying that he thought the guidelines were grossly excessive in this case. And he compared Manafort's conduct to the conduct of people who have gotten sentences of a couple of months in prison. He did say that this case was slightly different. He did say he was surprised that Manafort didn't express regret. But then he handed a sentence that bears no resemblance, essentially, to the guidelines of 19.5 to 24 years.
Right, that being somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 years makes people question what are the point of the guidelines if, of all people, Paul Manafort, after conviction and blowing up his plea deal and lying to the Mueller prosecutors, if he is the star candidate to be up for 19 years and get 4, what does that say, Ken?
I mean, this is a message to the people who would commit this kind of conduct that we are not going to throw the book at you in this court in Virginia, in Alexandria, Virginia. Now, there is another court that will pass judgment on Paul Manafort next week, and I think you're going to see a much different result, particularly in the context of what will be greeted as a very light sentence for Paul Manafort.
You hit such an important point, Ken, which is the breaking news tonight, Paul Manafort getting a very good deal based on the 19 years he was up for, getting somewhere in the neighborhood of a few years, of 4 years, but he faces up to 10 more next week. The story not over, but by the standards of what he was looking for and his team was looking for, quite a lenient sentence for Paul Manafort coming out of Virginia tonight. Thanks to my entire panel for our special coverage. This has been The Beat with Ari Melber.
Thanks for watching. To see more videos, click right here, and subscribe.